You're listening to Science and Saucery, a show dedicated to adding life to your years. And now your hosts, registered dietitian Julieanna Hever and scientist Ray Cronice.
Welcome.
Hello, hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you doing, Raymond James?
Been a great weekend.
Indeed.
We have another Q&A day, which I love.
I'm excited because we had so many fantastic questions that we tried to answer, but we ran out of time. And so we are going to hit some of those same questions from that same thread just because I promised and because they were good questions.
And we've had all kinds of really fun meals over the last week or so. It's been great.
Yes.
A lot of fun food to eat.
Yes, there is.
It's really funny. Oh, everybody with the holiday, everybody was talking about, they just had 2 months off and now they're getting a 3-day weekend. But, I think with the food, there's probably a lot of people that are at this point trying to take a break from all the crazy stuff they've ordered and eaten over the time. And yet it's been great. We've been harvesting the hydroponic garden, the veg. So that's been great. If you haven't listened to our hydroponic episode, I think it's 26. It's a really great one, but we got loads of kale and chard the last few days. So we've been eating lots of chard and lots of kale.
What's really fun besides, I can never eat too many leafy greens, but what's been more fun than that is that we're getting these pictures of people who've made their own and built their own veg and they're having their own harvest and gardening for the first time. It's pretty exciting.
It's really kind of fun. When we talk about gardening can be this big ordeal where you're doing large fields in your backyard or large plots or raised beds. And obviously, if you love doing that's great. For me, since I grew up on a produce farm, it's a little too much like work.
You want less is more right now.
So I spent hours and hours and hours and hours out in a field. So just simply doing that and I remember having to hoe all the weeds and, pick off all the bugs because we, way before organic was a thing, we were always picking off most of our pests. We weren't spraying everything. But the hydroponic garden, what I love about this approach and what I love about herb gardens and other things is that if someone's not been started doing it and they're a little bit intimidated, it's not this big ordeal. You don't have weeds that you have to deal with. And, about the biggest thing I've had to deal with this year is from this point, because it's still cool, is squirrels digging in the edge. So we've got squirrels out there again.
Yeah, but we're trying to entice them too, because I want our squirrel to come say hi every day, ask for nuts. Oh my gosh, he or she comes and looks in the window for us and comes and knocks. It's the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life.
But this idea that we have these leafy greens and stuff, the really nice thing about them is they taste so much better. Like, for example, you were really surprised between the difference between the curly kale and the prism kale. In eating it, you could definitely taste a difference.
Well, it was interesting because I hadn't heard of, prism kale? And it still looks almost identical to the curly kale, but the taste was significantly different. One was way more bitter. I think that was which one was better? Do you remember? I don't remember.
I think it was the curly kale.
Either way, I'll take it all.
These kinds of leafy greens, you can really produce a lot of them and they taste amazing. Obviously, in the smaller bucket systems, the tomatoes and peppers and all the other things that will be coming up over time, those are great too. But the herbs and spices and the leafy greens right now, we'll replace some of those in the next few weeks as it starts getting warmer. But it's really fun. So,
all right, let's dig into questions because we got a lot and I want to answer all of them, or at least as many as we can. The first one is for you, and it's a good question because we get emails, I want to say, several times a week with people saying, I read Penn's book, I did the potato diet or the potato famine or some variation of that. And now I don't know what to do. And a lot of those are the people that are interested in consults, or they're just interested in getting that answer. So James R. asked, he wrote on my Facebook post a couple weeks ago, I want to do the potato fast like Penn did, but Ray advised me to go straight to the health span solution. I'm curious as to why I shouldn't reset my palate with a potato fast first. And I think it's important that you address this.
Okay. Yeah, so first things, potato fast is an oxymoron.
Right.
Just like juice fast is an oxymoron, or even kale fast is an oxymoron. So fasting is no calorie, just water. And not even all these electrolytes. People are being crazy and they're taking ketones and they're doing all this stuff as if the body needs help. All you need is water. And if someone's fasting, that's a fast. Now, why do I advise people not do 2 weeks of potatoes and reset? Well, I think, this idea of reset, while it's true on the larger scale, in other words, a person can become habituated to more sweet, salty, and oily, and less habituated to sweet, salty, and oily. Outside of really changing your diet for a while, that's not the problem. The reason why I used potatoes from the very beginning was primarily because I was trying to unseat what was happening in the, I'm going to say 2012, 2013 timeframe, something like that, where this insulin carbohydrate hypothesis of weight gain was put in. And so that has two elements of it that I don't agree with. First, I don't agree that potatoes are carbs, meaning, potatoes, rice comprise of probably more than 60 or 70% of protein source worldwide. The number changes over time, but this idea that a potato or rice is a carb and that animal flesh is a protein is just kind of it's just an incorrect framework of food in my opinion, or I guess in our opinion. And so I was demonstrating, if quote unquote carbs make you fat and potatoes or rice are carbs, eat them and get fat. And what everybody found is they were losing weight. And so then you would say, oh, great. Why not just do that? Well, because weight loss is not the problem. You could not eat anything or fast. We don't recommend fasting to lose weight for other reasons too. And the main reason with all of this is that none of it teaches you how not to gain. And so if you really want to do something that's sustainable, like me losing my weight and keeping it off all these years, or if you go back to John Henney's episode, Today is Nothing, Today is Everything, what you're going to find that all of the clients that succeed have in common is that they lose the weight relatively rapidly. Well, relatively, it's a lot more rapid than most people do because they never even get to their goal. And then they change the way they live. And so the reason why I tell people not to do potatoes is because it really doesn't matter. We use it in our program in a different context. We are talking about many, many other social inputs in food and eating, and it's a good thing because it's really hard to mess up in terms of what we're trying to get out of people during that period. But there really isn't a reset in that sense. That's not to say if you eat potatoes, actually, if you could probably take most of our recipes and eat a recipe and your palate, quote unquote, would become less habituated to sweet, salt, and oily just because they are that way. But, our friends like Robbie and Cyrus, they're eating nothing but fruits, sweet mangoes and stuff every day. They don't have weight problems. And it's really hard if someone's on a raw fruitarian diet. It's really hard to get enough calories if you're not eating oils and things. It's difficult. So to wrap that up, I would say we would prefer for you to grab the HealthSpan solution, eat a couple recipes, and just try to figure out how much you need to eat to lose weight every day. I mean, it's really that simple. If the scale isn't moving, you're eating too much. And we just have people from all walks that talk about this, but ultimately, if your metabolic bank account, your storage organ is full, then it's time to go on a spending spree, expend some of that fat.
Okay, so there's so many segues to other questions in what you just said, but I'm going to go to Joshua Noah E. And he said, and this is a perfect segue because you just mentioned Cyrus and Robbie. For us diabetics, and I'm going to give this one to you, of course, because it's great for you. How long, eating right side, should we expect to let our sugars ride higher before we start to see insulin sensitivity go up?
Yeah, so this is the tough one because I don't want to give medical advice.
Right.
However, I can tell you,
generally speaking,
I can tell you for me what happened. And so First, I assume he's talking about type 2 or insulin resistance, but it actually turns out there's absolutely, since type 1 and type 2 share really no pathophysiology, meaning what causes type 1, meaning your body's not producing insulin, is really not related to what causes type 2, meaning you have insulin and your body's not utilizing it, or the glucose is not being utilized in a proper way. And generally speaking, when I have gone from insulin resistant to normal glucose response, eating nothing but starchy vegetables and fruits, it takes probably between 16 and 23 days for my blood glucose to normalize using a continuous glucose monitor, a CGM. So probably you should see within 2 or 3 weeks, you should see it normalize. There's a lot of information in Robbie and Cyrus's book. There's a lot of information in Joel Fuhrman's The End of Diabetes. That's kind of the concept that I was utilizing at the time because, in that case, he's probably eating stuff that's, not excessive in starchy vegetables and fruits, but also not devoid of them too. The biggest problem that I see out there in general is this concept of insulin resistance as being you're broken. And everybody knows at this point what our concept is, that, this idea of broken. Now, clearly type 1 is a broken type of physiology, and it's not something you're going to change, except for probably in the rarest of occasions. There's probably some way to do it. We just haven't figured it out yet. But in type 2, it's a normal physiological response. And without going into the detail on why that is, I would just simply say that if hemoglobin A1C and fasting blood glucose, these are indicators that would say you're insulin resistant, are biomarkers for a bad driver, just like tickets and accidents are biomarkers for a bad car driver. These are biomarkers for a bad carb driver. I'm going to use the C word in this case just because it sounds like carb and carb. Then imagine if we took the same approach with driving. Imagine we took away the car, just like everybody is recommending taking away the carbs, and let's then look at your driving record in 6 months and tell me, what have you learned? You're no longer in the car. I'm sure you're not going to have accidents. You're not going to have tickets. But does that mean you're now a good driver? On the contrary, if you increase the starchy vegetables and fruit in your diet and decrease the saturated fats and some of the lipids in your diet, and your blood glucose control gets better, meaning you see a drop in hemoglobin A1C, which is kind of like a proxy for, what's been going on for the last 2 or 3 months, and you see a drop in fasting glucose, but you've increased the starchy vegetables and fruits in your diet, what does that say? This is the example of driving more, not taking away the car, but driving more. You're going on a road trip with the car and your driving record improves, meaning you don't have accidents, you don't get tickets. That's what happens. And it probably is the case that increases of those with decreases of the other side, the excess amino acids in the diet, the excess saturated fat in the diet, it turns out that works. And so if you just want to manage numbers, if that's the goal, you can manage the numbers. But I think what I would do is I would certainly follow something like our food triangle, and I would keep eating right, and I would decrease the amount of fats in the diet for a little bit of time. You don't have to go to a zero fat diet, but just decrease down. And what you should find is you should see normal within 2 or 3 weeks.
Great. Okay. So Sally M asked about ideal weight and your reason behind using the method you use. And so I'll answer that one. We use the Hamwe method. And when I saw your question, I was like, well, that's a good question. Why do we use the Hamwe method? And really, it's one of the most universal equations that are used to predict ideal weight. And it offers kind of a buffer about like plus or minus 10%, depending on, usually they use like a wrist measurement. But it's a real good estimation. And we've used it always. I learned it in grad school as like the best one to use. And The reason is a good generalization. And so what it is it takes like 100-pound person and like 100, and it also differentiates between male and female. So a 5-foot woman, the ideal weight would be 100 pounds. And then every inch after 5 feet is plus 5 pounds. So I'm 5'4", I should be about 120 plus or minus 10%. And that also allows for some muscle mass. This doesn't take into mind body fat percentage or any of that. It's just actual weight. And then of course there's going to be a range. And then for males, it's for a 5-foot male, it would be 106 pounds plus 6 pounds per inch after that. So we use that to estimate with our clients. It's been incredibly effective because we don't say you have to be exactly this weight. We say, let's get close to this. And we predict exactly when they will get to that weight. And when they get to that weight, we decide whether or not that feels like the right weight for them. And but it's a really good generalized estimation of ideal body weight.
Yeah, and when you reach that number, if you're normal in muscle mass, what you're going to find is you're probably, if you're a male, you're probably somewhere between 10 and 15%. We've seen this almost universally. And if you're a female, you're probably between 15 and 20% body fat. And so what's really great about that is, I mean, if you think about it, if a person, so let's just say, for example, we take, a woman that's 120 pounds and, 20% body fat, that means they'd have around 24 pounds of body fat on. If they were on the 15 side, they would have 18. So if a person has between 18 and 24 pounds of body fat, and they still say, well, yeah, I kind of got a little pooch here that is still bothering me. I can feel it. I can see it. This is the old cereal commercial, pinch an inch. Gosh, that wouldn't go over well today. But if you pinch the back of your hand, that's skin. If you pinch the skin that's around your midsection, you'll feel, that there's adipose tissue there under the skin, subcutaneous adipose tissue.
Speak for yourself.
And so,
just kidding.
If you have 18 to 24 pounds to lose, and you do another 5 or 6 just to kind of see where you're going to be, this is not crisis. This is not eating disorder. This idea that losing weight fast causes eating disorders and that losing weight fast is an issue, or I just think that we just sustain that kind of idea. This idea that stuffing our face all the time and eating until we're full because we're eating, I call it vegetable stuffing, really high volume, hot, low-fat kind of foods. I think that's just as much of an issue in terms of eating disorder, but that's not the question. I just want to sort of throw it in there. The point here is that there is going to be a range of healthy weight, and healthy weight doesn't mean you're a fitness model either. This is another really big issue, and it does cause a lot of issues because compared to what? So, if you're trying to be ripped, you're going to have a lower body percentage than if not. And I would say the vast majority of bodybuilders out there during their non-posing time don't look like they look on stage. I think they're at a very unhealthy level of body fat, male or female.
And they go through extreme methods to get there.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is getting into a normal range. And so if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. If you would actually look at the Hamway formula, calculate that number, this may sound like crazy where you are, and you sort of head in that direction. As you get closer and closer, you can tell. And it's going to take a while for your body to, completely redistribute things. So there may be some loose skin at first, but if you get down to a low enough level of body fat, you'll see even that most of the time takes care of itself.
So speaking of weight loss, let's go to Julie S. She asked a lot of good questions. Thank you, Julie. And you always do. And you keep posting our beautiful pictures of our recipes, and it makes us so happy. Thank you, Julie. I want to call you Jules because I already told you it's my favorite nickname. So I'm going to call you Jules. I'm taking that initiative. Okay. So one of your questions was, how do you recommend navigating food choices after weight loss, WAIT, weight loss? Can I really not have bread, pasta, cheese, sushi, and cookies? Isn't success based on what you eat most of the time, not all of the time? And this is a really good question because there's a huge ocean of difference between weight loss and weight maintenance. And we use a scale to measure kind of hunger and satiety. And you really can you have to stay kind of low, and you have to be really, really careful when you are on weight loss. That said, once you get there, you'll probably notice that you can get away with all sorts of stuff and then maintain your weight. So you may go up a couple pounds and go down, but most of us stay within a range of 5 to 10 pounds over the long haul. It kind of takes an effort to gain and it takes an effort to lose. And most people actually creep up over time. That the calculation is mind blowing. To gain 20 pounds in 50 years, or is it 50 pounds in 20 years? 50 pounds in 20 years is a mere 168 calories a week. And
24 a day.
Isn't that crazy? Like nobody calculates up to that. Not that we're telling you to measure
nobody controls to that level. Yeah. And so most people that are overweight, if you think about it, if you've been overweight, you're probably, if you're 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight and you say, okay, I've got this weight to lose, you're not on your way to 800. You got to a certain overage and then you sort of evened out at that level. At that point, you're calorie neutral. And so this idea that Julieanna's saying, which is losing and not gaining, are two totally different things. They're different physiologies and they're different things. The point here is that having that maintenance mode where you're able to eat a much wider range of food, you're able to eat much more often, all the kinds of things that you probably would slow down your weight loss are things that actually are beneficial during that period.
So your answer is correct. Yes. So once you've lost your weight and you're at your happy place, success is based on what you eat most of the time. And that's why we have the whole idea of rare and appropriate. And those are the things you mentioned. Well, I wouldn't consider bread and pasta. It depends on how you use these things. But, rare and appropriate will be defined.
Yeah, I think a great example to give them that you normally talk about in our 6 Daily Threes, or your 6 Daily Threes, I guess they're ours now, is grains, because this is something I think you really explain in a good way, that they're on there, but they're not something, we do agree, you don't really need, you don't have a grain deficiency, so to speak.
They're not on the 6 Daily Threes because there's nothing nutritionally unique about whole grains that you can't find in those other 5 things. It's 6, but the 6 is exercise. There's unique properties to fruits and vegetables and the green leafy and cruciferous vegetables and nuts and seeds that
Mushrooms
are unique. But those, mushrooms, I would put that in the other vegetable category. I know they're fungi, but okay, so we'll have to expand the 6 Daily Threes and get rid of exercise. That's a good idea. All right, well, there you go. That's
we'll just rename it to activity.
That'll be 6 Daily Threes 2.0.
We can do it mind.
No, but I mean
mind and body activity. Combine them.
No, okay. I mean, get rid of it because it doesn't make sense anyway. We'll put mushrooms in. Okay, that's going to be the next derivation, 2.0. But my point is that whole grains are healthy and they are a staple worldwide. And if you look at the evidence on eating whole grains as a staple of your diet, those people tend to be healthier, decreased risk for chronic disease, decreased mortality, all of those. There's great research showing the benefits of including whole grains on a diet. There's so much confusion about that because again, so I'm not saying they're bad at all, but I am saying that they are not nutritionally unique. And the next level of that is, you said bread and pasta. That is not considered a whole grain. Now, even if you have whole grain, if you have like a lentil pasta, or if you have even a whole wheat pasta, you're still processing it, refining it into the next level. You're taking out some of the fiber, you're removing some of the things to change the formatting. Is that bad? No, there's nothing bad or good. We don't like to give foods good or bad, titles. But if you want to stick to what we're talking about nutritionally speaking, you want to go for the wholest version. And I actually have a blog post on that, on whole, because, if you think about it, like you got an olive and you take out the oil and it's just the oil, it's just the fat, and you've removed all these other nutrients. And then the same thing, let's say a grape, and you turn it into a raisin, and you've taken out a lot of the water,
grape juice,
or you put it into grape juice or wine and you've taken out all of the fiber.
Added alcohol.
Yum. But the whole point is that you're refining things down, and every time you refine it, every time you go down that derivation, it changes the nutritional composition, it changes the satiety effect of it, the satiation and the satiety effect of it, and it changes the outcome. So what does that mean? That doesn't mean don't eat pasta, don't eat bread. Absolutely, that is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, we want you to eat we want you to stick to your diet, what we said most of the time: vegetables, fruits, whole grains, legumes, mushrooms, nuts, seeds, herbs, and spices. And the pasta and the breads and stuff are fine, but they will add to the caloric intake. A lot of people overeat those foods. So there are things that come along with it, but you have to see how you do with it and how your overall diet is. So yes, it is. It really does come down to what are you doing most of the time.
And let's talk about, just for a second, just to dive in there one little layer deeper. If you had some bread and you have it with some chili and you dip it in and you have it, or with some soup or stew, and you have a small slice or two of bread, that's very different than dipping it in olive oil and salt, right? So that's a different. However, if you took that same chili and put it over a baked potato, or took that same chili and put it over a bed of brown rice, or you took that same chili and put it over a bed of greens, then you can probably see that there is a variation of that. And the same thing goes for pasta. If you think about pasta and the amazing flavors of pasta sauce, the one we have, my grandmother's, in this book, one of the things I learned from Joel Fuhrman that really was a sort of a mind opener for me was the idea of pasta sauce on salads. It never occurred to me to take warm pasta sauce and just drench it over the salad.
Everything is better over a salad.
Yes, I know you believe that. You and Joel are both salad kings and
lovers.
Queens,
yes,
right?
Yes.
But for me, that wasn't obvious. And so what happens when you spread that pasta sauce over a cauliflower crust? What happens when you spread it over just a raw, just a flour dough? Well, do you put the olive oil on the pizza, for example, if we're talking about a pizza,
or is the pasta sauce like an Alfredo, very different, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so if you have pasta with even if it's cashew cheese, but it's a cheesy kind of thing, or real cheese, you're going to have a different.
Yeah, and let me give you an example. It's totally different. So my kids love pasta. That's all they want to eat when they can. And so you introduced this amazing ramen recipe. And so what I've done is here, you can have your pasta and I'll get the whole grain pasta, whatever. But it's more vegetable and tofu than pasta. So it's kind of like pasta as an ingredient. So there's there's infinite, well, you don't like when I say infinite, but there's myriad ways to utilize these ingredients, and that will translate.
Right.
And that's why we go back to 6 daily threes. What are you prioritizing in your overall diet?
Right. And you probably shouldn't be eating pasta every day. If you did, and you didn't have an excess in calories, is it going to be a really bad thing? Probably not. What the problem is with pasta and breads, etc., is historically all the things we put on top of them. That's the problem, is the association. The same thing goes when you take all these grains. I mean, we even call them cereals, going back to Kellogg's, who was, part of the temperance movement and was vegetarian. But what they ended up doing is highly processing the grains and then serving them every morning, with milk all over them. And then on top of that, later, by the 50s, 60s, we said, these aren't very nutritious, so we're going to add all these vitamins and minerals back, fortify these quote-unquote cereals, which are now this highly processed food stuff. And then because kids like things sweet, we're going to add a bunch of sugar. And so by the 70s and 80s, all the kids that were growing up, 60s, 70s, 80s, were eating a big bowl of sugar.
With sugar. I used to put sugar
on top of sugar. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not only what you eat with the pasta or whatever, the bread, it's also what you're replacing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're having pasta with your vegetables as opposed to, let's say, beans with your vegetables or tofu with your vegetables, that's a nutritional difference. So that matters too.
Yeah. If you find yourself waking up one day and you're getting your vegetables in a powder and mixing it in a drink, you're kind of doing it the hard way.
Yes.
This is not the way to get vegetables. And so by taking something like these noodles, whether they're ramen noodles or whatever they are, which aren't that nutritionally significant, they aren't health food by any measure. However, if you load them up with tons of vegetables and other things and flavor, then the overall meal can be, a 6, a 7 on it, say 0 horrible and 10 is superfood, healthy, right? Well, then, maybe it's a 6 or 7, but it's not a 2. And what you're going to find is that all of these people, including the vegan crowd, all of them that villainize foods, what they'll find is that what ended up happening is the natural progression was to this sort of excess amount. Because probably if you have animal products below 5 or 10%, I'm not talking about ideology for the men, I'm just talking about health. What we've seen in Roy Walfort's work, what we've seen in Longlow's work, what we've seen in all of the stuff, of Okinawan diet, Dan Buettner and Blue Zones and all of that, is that, like you said on Mediterranean, meat was a condiment. It was, it was special occasions, or it was used as a flavoring.
Holidays, celebration.
Right, but as soon as it became available in excess and it becomes the center of the plate, then it's a problem. Then what do? They then take away all the starchy foods, and they do see some benefit. Because compared to what? Compared to bottom feeding on the food triangle, and dig into this in our book if you haven't, compared to bottom feeding, left side eating and right side eating is beneficial. And for vegetarians and vegans, we redefine bottom feeding. And this is why all the no-fat crowd is, running around saying this, compared to what? If you're vegetable stuffing and you're trying to shove as much food as you can possibly shove in your mouth, and you think that that's normal, then obviously nuts and seeds send you over the edge. Or for the vegetarians, the cheese and the eggs ends up sending them over the edge. Or the olive oil that everybody's fearful of, a teaspoon of olive oil just sends them into a fit. And the reality is, if you just look at the food triangle, when you're eating left or eating right on there versus bottom feeding, you're going to see an improvement. But just because you've seen an improvement compared to what, it doesn't necessarily mean that that is the absolute epitome of health.
Okay, so we can go in so many directions. I'm going to go with legumes. Mary F. asks, are there any downsides to legumes? I'm going to interpret, but I'm going to answer in a few ways. So she said, I read that lentils are anti-nutrients, and I think you meant contain anti-nutrients. And then you said, what about excessive lignans? And while legumes do have lignans, which are powerful phytonutrients, I think you're referring to the lectins. And those are the ones that are kind of infamously discussed because of some books. And I would recommend going to nutritionfacts.org and listening to the video on lectins. There's a couple of videos on there that are really good. And the whole interesting thing is that, let me just talk about lentils. They are wonderful. Legumes are something we want you to have, every day. That's one of the 6 daily threes. We want you to have about 1 to 1.5 cups of legumes, and legumes include lentils and beans and peas, and hummus should be a food group, and of course, and then soy foods like tofu and tempeh. These are all in that category of legumes, and they are unique, nutritionally speaking. But specifically, and we talk about that in the books, all of our books and our papers, we always talk about legumes. But specific to lentils, they are extremely loaded in polyphenols and all sorts of, they have multiple different types of fibers, and they are extraordinarily healthy. They've got antioxidant properties, antibacterial properties, antifungal, antiviral, cardioprotective, chemoprotective, hypolipidemic, anti-obesity, anti-cancer, anti-diabetic. They are so extraordinary that I would not be afraid of eating lentils and all legumes. So again, we want you to have about 1 to 1.5 cups a day. Why are you smiling, Raymond?
Well, it's just so funny because I'm gonna take both sides, because I love to make both sides upset at me. So we get always the where do you get your protein question.
Yep.
And what's really funny is you got one group of people afraid of lectin proteins and another group of people afraid of gluten proteins. But none of them are afraid of
meat,
animal protein. Well, one side is animal protein, one of them's not, right? One thinks food has protein and plants don't. And it's so amazing to me that all of this spirals around. Now, you know what's really interesting? What if when you take some of these out, you are actually reducing the overall protein in your diet? like in general. What if a lot of the benefits on both sides is that it's not really the proteins, plural, the tens of thousands of proteins in every single cell that we're talking about, but the amino acids that are there, because these lectins are denatured with heat, just like gluten and a lot of other things are denatured in heat. That doesn't mean you can't have sensitivity. That doesn't mean you can't be allergic to a shrimp protein or a soy protein or a tree nut protein. But the point here is everybody is obsessed with protein, or many people, I should say, are obsessed with proteins, and yet everybody attacks them routinely. And it's just, I feel like it's ironic that when people say lectin or when people say gluten, they don't automatically say protein. Now, if you go back to advertising 100 years ago, gluten was the lean beef of wheat. That's how they advertised it on the advertisement. You've seen this in some of the magazines I have here where they have the ad in there. It's the lean beef of wheat. So I just find it back to what we teach in our book, which is we need to make sure that we have sufficient nitrogen, sufficient amino acids, and sufficient essential or indispensable amino acids, those 9 or so that we don't make, no other animal makes. And what's incredible to me is that everyone is attacking these sources. And I think based on longevity and health span research, maybe everybody's kind of right in a different way or for the wrong reasons, meaning, there's back to left side and right side eating. One thing in addition to fats or starches, which are being limited on the left and right side, is amino acid content. And so it's really kind of interesting that things like lectins come up as being anti-nutrients because they do, they bind sugars, etc. But that's not to say, because that's a function of them, but it doesn't mean that they necessarily are bad if you cook and denature them.
A marketing ploy. It really is. It's just ridiculous. Like if you look again at the evidence on legume consumption worldwide and how it's been a staple for centuries, well, forever, right? Super healthy.
Yeah. And this lectin thing, I don't remember the details, so I'm going to go out on a limb and say that it's somewhere in here. But the fact of the matter is, I think one of the biggest issues came when I think it was in Japan, but I'm going from memory. I think it was in Japan where there was a surge of eating a raw bean that started this whole problem.
Oh, it was a white kidney bean. That's in Dr. Greger's video.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I remember it being. But it turns out that there was a real issue that happened, but it was very specific, and then it gets generalized everywhere, just like the word protein becomes generalized and we don't get down to the specificity, just like lipid or fats get generalized and we don't get to the specificity, or carbs get generalized and we don't get back to this specificity. And this is what happens, and companies take advantage of you reacting to protein, carbs, and fat, but nobody's saying, hey, don't have lectins because they're proteins. Don't eat gluten because it's a protein. Or they're not advertising it. Hey, these beans have protein, but they're not saying they have lectins, So I'm just trying to say how complicated this has become and how much we distill this down in marketing and advertising.
Yes, it's crazy. It's so complicated, but it's not.
It's not. The food triangle sort of sorts through all of this.
Exactly.
And you end up doing well, and it predicts what your success is going to be.
It does. Consistently. One more question about, that has to do sort of with legumes. And this comes from Phyllis E. And it's about, we'll say it the way the UK, they say passing wind. I love that.
The gas we pass.
The gas. I think that's the best way to ask it. But she says, lentils, beans, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, it's interfering with my dating life. What to do? So first of all, those are what you mentioned are the most infamous for producing excess wind. I do love that. But the trick is there's two things. There's a few things. One is being consistent about it, having those foods on a regular basis and kind of getting your microbiome prepared for what's in store. And you will change your microbiome if you're eating it consistently. I don't know what your diet is or was or how you eat these foods. Some people are just extremely sensitive, and most people will respond to those foods, especially if they're coming from a standard Western diet, or even just not a real plant intensive diet, because it's like going from 0 to 100 right away, because these are so high in fiber, especially like the cruciferous vegetables. So we want you to eat them. What I suggest is making sure you're consistent and every day, having some of those foods and just trying to get your microbiome adjusted. And the second thing I would say is, if you're still experiencing problems, if you've been doing this for a long time and you're still noticing that it's bad and literally interfering with your dating life, I would say keep a food and symptom journal. That's what I have all my clients do when I work with them. In fact, before they meet with me, I have them do at least 7-day food and symptom journal that's very, very detailed, and write out which foods exacerbate things. So you may have to split them up. So you may want to have your lentils with, something that's kind of neutral for you, or any of those foods just kind of neutral, and not have them all at once. So you could start individuating and kind of determining which ones are the ones causing the most problems. And then, limit those to when you're not going to have a date or something like that. Ray has a different perspective on that, but overall you want to just be consistent and you want to monitor it. But these foods are so healthy. But the other thing is, there's so many different types of foods. So if you could identify which ones are giving you the biggest problem, you could just switch out to something that is less invasive and less disruptive for you. And then just change it up a little bit. So there are so many different vegetables in the cruciferous category. There are so many legumes, and some are better than others. Lentils happen to be usually better than beans. But the other trick is to soak your beans before you cook them, because soaking like overnight, or at least for several hours, and then rinsing will remove some of those oligosaccharides that are promoting the gas. So that helps a lot too. But again, just note what is worse for you, and you can kind of adjust accordingly and then schedule it in terms of your dates. Yes.
And I would also, when we talk about this, a couple things. First of all, what goes on with the gas we pass? If you have small children, I would get the books, the Holes in Our Nose and the Gas We Pass, and I would read them to your children, because we normalized gas and all of that stuff very early on, so that it didn't become some crazy idea that, oh my God, someone farted. Sounds like a George Carlin thing, right? But the idea is that there's a good side of flatulence, and that it really talks about a healthy gut. Now, what's going on is that that bacteria and stuff that's happening is farther down in the digestive tract, and these more complex polysaccharides, oligosaccharides, that they have these are branched ones. They're really complex. They have branched ones, and you have a hard time digesting them earlier, and then they move further down in the tract, and then when those bacteria ingest those sugars or saccharides or fiber, they then produce the gas as a byproduct of their own digestion, just like you produce CO2 when you're metabolizing. But they do that, and then that's what ends up happening. And it becomes worse if you have rotting, meat in your intestinal tract, or you've been eating stuff that tends to break down with high sulfur levels. So you've got these high methionine, the high this is a sulfur-containing amino acid. You get these high sulfur amino acids that are in higher concentration in meat, which is why people believe they're complete proteins. That's a whole nother topic that we just talked about, and we can go into more detail at some other point. But the point being is that sulfur gas, that hydrogen sulfide gas, doesn't smell good. So a person that is eating all these beans, like your typical chili that has all of the 2,000 calories of meat, and it has the high fiber and these high complex sugars, that makes this gas that smells putrid and awful. Now, if you're eating onions and you're eating garlic and there's other things, I'm not saying that, it's not just that. So I'm not talking about, going out and ripping them in the elevator, right? What I'm saying is that having a good, healthy digestive tract is a good thing. And for the most part, if you're on a whole food plant-based diet, there isn't all that sulfur odor that you normally would have. Now, stuff like BINO, which is really just an enzyme, alpha galactosidase, I think it's something.
Galactosidase, I think.
Yeah. But anyway, it's an enzyme, and all it does is it just breaks down some of those the galactose. It's a bond that's being broken down in these complex sugars, and makes them simple so that you can digest it earlier. So You can use something like that for a while, but what you'll find is that as you eat these things more and more, to some extent, you'll get better at digesting these. And as you decrease left side eating, hopefully to zero, or just to the rare and appropriate, and you don't have all these sulfur containing excess amino acids in the diet, what you also found is that, the odor part goes down too. So that when you do pass gas, it's not going to take the room out, So it is complex. And I know there's just all of these social cloud, pun intended, hanging around this topic. But the fact of the matter is having a healthy microbiome in the colon and, in the area past the small intestinal tract, this is a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Yes. Okay. So I'm just going to answer this quick question. Christoph R. asked, can I eat too much sesame paste, tahini? I mean, you could eat too much of anything. Yes.
Especially that. It's just like eating peanut butter in a similar way.
It's very much like eating peanut butter. And delicious.
And the answer is,
yes.
I can eat so much peanut butter that it doesn't hang out in the house because no jar is too deep for my spoon.
That's right.
So I just don't use it. Even when I put it in the freezer as a trial, I got to the point where it's I could pick out what was peanut butter taffy. It was pretty a bad thing. It's just the one thing. It's the one thing that I just don't really need around, and so I make fresh peanut butter out of peanuts, and I can not eat peanuts. I do okay with those.
Yeah. And I mean, the truth is you could eat too much of anything.
Yes.
We want you to have variety. We want you to eat.
Even vegetable stuffing.
Yes,
people who
even vegetable stuffing.
I mean, it's just, you get yourself obsessed with eating. But yes, sesame paste in particular, absolutely combined with some of those starchy things and fruits that we were talking about earlier, like ramen, absolutely could lead to weight gain because of oxidative priority. Everybody mischaracterizes the oxidative priority paper about losing weight. It's not about losing weight. It's about how we aggregate that 168 calories a week over time.
Okay, this is a perfect segue, but I just want to finish that with to answer you, Christoph. We use the 6 daily threes again, 1 to 2 ounces total nuts and seeds a day, and that would go in that category. In nuts and seeds are all nuts, all seeds, preferably raw, or the pastes. So those all count. Okay. So that answers Dan P's question. He's asked in several different ways, in different places. He's asked us this question. So we have to get to this. And it is about oxidative priority. And the question is written like this. Looking at calories consumed and fat utilization in sitting versus jogging during times of calorie restriction. Sounds familiar, right? You've got a perfect graphic for this. How long after exercise, jogging, does it take for the body to return to the higher value of about 74% fat oxidation while in the rested state? Does the fat oxidation during exercise still drop to 13% when calorie restricting? Do you want to see those numbers, or those are your numbers, right, from the actual?
Well, some of them are from the paper and some of them aren't. So all right. So there's a lot of concepts packed into here. So, all right. First, he's referring to probably figure 3 in our oxidative priority paper. And what that's there to show in a more general sense, because we're trying to talk about a concept, which is the concept that simply increasing the calorie consumption of the body should automatically result in weight loss or automatically avoid weight gain. And the problem with this is that we have multiple compartments that we store fuel in. So if your body actually worked like a car, and if we sort of take the analogy that we just love to go fuel the car up with our friends and family, so the first day you get up, there's not much room in the fuel tank, but you stop by on the way to work and grab a quick squirt of gas, prices are down, got to get a good squirt in there. And then you go and you think, there wasn't much room and now it's full. So I'm just going to leave my car idling in the parking lot. And then at lunch, I can grab some friends and we can go grab a quick squirt of gas, fill her up, top her off, because, hey, everybody loves getting a little gas. That's funny from last time, right? Everybody loves getting a little fuel in the car, right? So then you let it idle all afternoon because you kind of want to get a quick squirt at happy hour on the way home, so you get it just another little, put it in there a little bit more. And then you go to dinner and you say, oh my gosh, it's time to eat again with friends and family. I'm just going to let it idle all night long. And then in the morning, I can get a little bit more. This is what we do with our bodies.
That's great.
Okay?
That's so
this
visual.
Is what we do. And if you can
that.
imagine this car in 5 or 10 years, interior might look beautiful. Paint job, fantastic. Rotated the tires, they look great. Right? All the engine components, because that car has just been sitting there idling, the injectors and the oil and the oil filter and the fuel filters and all of that system that's just been idling all that time. That's what happens in our body. In some sense, it's sort of an accurate kind, or it's sort of a analogous kind of idea that, we end up having all these subsystems crash even when we kind of look good, and at some point everything starts to go. Well, it turns out that our body isn't that simple, because we don't just have a fuel tank. We have another fuel tank, and we have a third fuel tank. So it's kind of like, now I'm going to stretch the analogy too far, but it's kind of like a car that ran on wood, runs on natural gas, and runs on fuel, or we could even put electricity as a hybrid. And we say, now that we have a hybrid, it becomes a really more complex situation, because we can have a car that's optimized to run on electricity. We can have one that's optimized to run on wood. We can have a steam engine car from past. We can have one that optimized all these buses and stuff for natural gas, or have another one that is running on fuel or diesel. And so what ends up happening is that now you're trying to, take this car that's prepared for anything, and that's what we are in life, prepared for anything. And you're trying to manage all those fuel, because you don't want, to have this hanging around. You don't want your batteries to go all the way dead. You don't want them to be all the way full. You got to charge them and discharge them at the right rates for those Tesla people out there, or those people that have hybrid cars. You won't want your fuel to sit in your tank forever, because it's been around forever and now it becomes, stale or foul. If it's diesel, you definitely don't want that kind of just sitting around. So what ends up happening is this really complex system where this analogy falls. And so what oxidative priority helps recognize is that the slow aggregation, that 168 calories a week, that 50 pounds of fat gain over 20 years, the 24 calories a day that represents, is just a little bit along the way. And it's a consequence of the chronically fed state. So if you go back, you'll see that figure 1, and also I think it was figure 1 and it was figure 4. I may have these wrong, but you'll see them. You'll see the chronically fed state. Every time we swallow, we start this whole process up, and we're in the chronically fed state. And that's why I think this OMAD, I hate to hear it, but OMAD, 1 meal a day, this is why everybody is so obsessed with this now, because they're not in the fed state. The car is getting time where it's just that, not ramped up all the time. And this is the opposite to the advice I was always given when I got to my fattest, which is we need to be eating all the time to keep our metabolism stoked. Well, nobody even asks, why does the metabolism go up after every meal? And part of it is the digestive tract, but most of it is to burn the calories that you can't store.
And it's so small a number.
Yeah, it's just a small number. Yeah, so
thermic effect.
Now the second part of that equation that was, or question. That was in there, is related to how fast after exercise do we return. And I have some data on this that hopefully will get out here soon. But the fact is that relatively rapidly after exercise, the change, which is actually towards glucose metabolism, comes back. So we saw, if you'll go back and read the Wired article from 2012 or whatever about cold, and you'll see part of this, because I think we actually, Stephen and I, describe part of the data there. It'll be a good refresher. That article in Wired magazine, I think it's called The Shiver System, et cetera, combined with this paper will explain a lot more. But the point here is that we do go up when we're running or active, our metabolism, our respiratory quotient, or RER, respiratory exchange ratio, shifts towards glucose and shifts towards that, especially if we exceed VO2 max. And it is true that then just pushes us kind of away from that fat burning. The other part of this that's sort of wrapped in here is this idea when he said going back to 75%, because probably people have heard me say that. And that's after a person's been dieting for 3 or 4 weeks. What you find is that during the fasted state, they're just burning a higher percentage of fat, which shouldn't be as surprising to anybody, meaning like we have our fats, our energy storage organ, and we don't need to eat the energy storage organ of another animal or a plant to burn our own storage organ, that in times of lower overall sustained calorie deficit day after day after day, our body then shifts over to our adipose, our energy storage organ, and utilizes it. And of course, in fasting, it's using all of that. I think there is a real mistake of this idea that people have that they're quote unquote fat adapted. And what this really means is that they're, prioritizing fat all the time for fuel, and that somehow is going to be a long-term healthful or beneficial state. And here's one of the things that I think is a real problem, which is what ends up having the body is very adaptive. And so while de novo lipogenesis isn't kicked up when you eat a diet high in starch in the absence or in a very low fat situation, meaning we're not converting either amino acids or glucose to lipids in a significant way. What is true is that if you start eating a diet that's higher and higher and higher in fat, we have seen that bile, which emulsifies fat and allows you to absorb it, ends up increasing. And in fact, you can find papers out there, I don't know them off the top of my head right now, but you can find papers out there comparing a vegan to an omnivorous diet and bile production, and you'll see that the bile production is significantly more. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because now more of that fat is being absorbed into the system, and it can be stored in almost a unlimited quantity. The reason why all these people on this really high-fat diet aren't gaining tons of weight is because most of that fat is going straight through. It's not because they're quote-unquote burning more fat and becoming fuel efficient, because our bodies, even a person who's been in fat, quote-unquote fat adapted or in keto, our bodies don't respond to lipids. This was a science experiment my daughter did when she was in high school with a calorimeter, She was able to show that, there's just a small boost, and this would be, probably you'll see this in figure 5 in our paper. There's a relatively small boost in metabolism and shift towards fat when we ingest it. Alcohol is one of the highest, amino acids of protein are high, glucose and starch is one of the next. But what we find is lipids are really small. And so the main reason people aren't gaining that fat is that they are much more of it's passing through them. So they are swallowing more. So if you take the calorie in, calorie out approach, it seems like you're becoming more efficient. But it turns out that we've seen this from Kevin Hall and a lot of the other keto studies. It's not that significant of a number. But here's the problem. And this is the problem I experienced firsthand and couldn't explain it until later in life. And that is, as soon as I added starchy vegetables and fruits back for all the reasons you were saying earlier, for all the reasons Dan Buettner describes in Bluefoot Zones, for all the reasons it's been in the Okinawan diet, all that other healthy gut bacteria stuff. As soon as you add it back, you don't just lose all that extra bile production. And it may seem like when I started eating the carbs, to use the C word, excuse my French, my language, as soon as I started eating the carbs, you might see that you got a increase in weight gain. And it may be because you trained your body, Mr. Fat for Fuel, Mrs. Fat for Fuel. You trained your body to pull more of it out of your digestive tract. And now, as soon as you created a competition with this in terms of glucose or even in alcohol, etc., you start gaining weight faster than you've ever seen in life. I gained more weight after Atkins than at any time in my life. And it was very much a bright line. And I was doing Atkins hardcore. In that period of time, I did lose weight, not as much as I wanted to. I lost it, like a lot of our clients lost it to a certain point, and then it stopped. And I hear this the same with the keto, same with paleo, and the same with junk food vegans. So I don't want to leave anybody out of here. Everybody has this. It's all calories, right? But it may be that you do that. And this may be, everybody says, oh, but I'm going to do a plant-based keto diet. You know what you may be doing? You may be doing what only Mr. Atkins, Dr. Atkins could have done to you before. You, on your plant-based diet, may be optimizing your body for pulling all that excess lipid out of your diet. And you may end up putting yourself in a perspective. Now, I don't know that I've seen a study of this done, but it'd be interesting for someone to do.
You mean vegan versus
just in terms of it? No, a
fat?
vegan high fat versus and a
because it's just becoming a little thing. And the problem is that so many people it's so hard to sustain anyway. So, but that's a really good point, because if you can't sustain it, you're going to have this backlash.
Yeah, but see, I hate the you can't sustain it argument. And I'll tell you why. Because everybody says the same thing about a plant-based diet.
About any diet.
Right. So let's not use that one.
Do you know how much research is wasted on the sustainability of a diet? Because it really doesn't matter.
Right. You can sustain it all you want. It's an access problem. It's not an excess problem.
Right.
But I will agree with you that it could be an issue that we haven't seen yet. Just like junk food vegans now having the same disease state as what you previously saw in your nutrition consults with people that were only eating an omnivorous diet. Mm-hmm. We could see a rise, and we could see, and also vegetarians, I think you can see very clearly in our new food triangle in the Health Span Solution, vegetarians often have weight problems, more so than vegans historically, and more so than, say, a left side, a paleo or a pescatarian. And so we may be creating, with all the fad stuff, I'm going to do the next vegan keto book. We're going to do keto, right? This intermediate molecule that's formed during lipid metabolism. We're going to use this as the litmus test for health. And I don't believe it is. I really don't believe it is. And I'm not saying that it doesn't have some interactions with sirtuins. It certainly does. But I don't think it's the be all and end all. And I think what we're going to find is people on either side end up increasing and slowly increasing the amount of lipid and fats in our diet. They are going to see bile follow. But I can't say this for certain. So just understand, part of this is there is some science here. Part of it's hypothesis. Maybe something's been done in the meantime and I don't know about it. But the fact is, I think that explains, at least it's consistent with the other data that I have seen and that I have tested firsthand. And still sticks to the food triangle. Yeah, it still can be answered and explained by the food triangle. The food triangle still explains it. All right, so I want to end, because we do have to wrap up. We have clients. With David H's non-question question, because this is just kind of a fun, easy answer, and I could just use it as a way to make a statement. So David H says, exercise. And then he has a picture of a male exercising, the little emoji. And so we can go in a million directions on exercise. But I want to put this out there, because I'm going to just kind of guess based on what we get questioned about all the time is, why do you say not to exercise? And I want to clarify that we don't say that. We have clients that come to us for lifestyle transformation. We help clients lose 0.6 to 0.8 pounds a day to get to their goal weight. That is what we do with our clients. After they get to their goal weight, we want everyone to go back to exercising, moving, being active. Wait, I'm going to say it. I know what you're going to say, but let me just say my piece. As a personal trainer, I just got recertified. It's been, 20 something years. I was pretty excited about that.
Okay, exercise is extraordinary. Movement is very important. You need to move throughout your life. You need to be active, as in the blue zones. You need to be moving your body to, avoid sarcopenia long term. Has nothing to do with your protein and where you're getting your protein from. It has to do with moving and stressing your bones and stressing your muscles and causing those little micro stresses so that you can keep the strength there, keep the bone density there. You need it for balance and flexibility and agility and all of the things that happen. And we're talking, we work with athletes, we work with all sorts of different populations, but our main focus is health span. And part of a health span lifestyle, you'll see it's one of our health span habits, is to stay active. There are plethora of benefits. You don't want me to say infinite again, but there are so many advantages to staying mobile and making sure it's something you do on a regular basis. So, David, if you have a specific question about exercise beyond that, reach out, because I think we'll probably end up doing some more of these. We have some really exciting interviews in the next few days that we can't wait to share with you. Like, I can't wait to have these talks with these really exciting people. But we will probably come back to doing some Q&As in the future. So ask us more specifically, but we would say absolutely exercise. It does interfere with weight loss. There's no question. You can lose weight and exercise, but our clients have the most success by putting exercise aside temporarily.
And we have them put fasting aside.
And putting fasting aside, right? You said before, and with one of our sessions today, it's the
fasting and
opposite
activity.
side
In
of
fact,
a coin.
fasting and exercise are opposite sides of the same coin, because for all of the short-term benefits they give, both of them tend to have a long-term detriment of increased appetite.
Yes, and there's other reasons too that it interferes with the weight loss. It's been very interesting. So I would say this has been fun to take your questions, and we thank you all so much for sharing them.
Yeah, and it's really fun to go dig in deep on these things. It feels a little better now than it did the first time to go through and just randomly answer questions, because I guess it is interesting for people to listen. At least their comments say that it is. So
well, and it also feels interesting because we have interviews all the time, and we don't know what we're going to get, and so it kind of feels like that. But it kind of is fun because it's like, ooh, let's talk about that. And what's really fun is that there's so many interrelated questions here, so it's kind of fun to put them all together.
And this, it feels a little bit more like work because all day, every day, these are the kinds of questions we're answering with clients.
Yep.
And it's always in the context. So we have them in a certain framework. And one of the problems or the issues that I have, and this last issue with activity or exercise is part of them, is when you say, the opposite of sedentary isn't exercise, the opposite of sedentary is active. And so there are many ways a person can be active. And, that's the goal. But the idea that, we all need to be, CrossFit, and we all need to be running ultra marathons and that throughout life, this is probably not necessarily the best way to go. But I understand people's love of activity.
Yes, we've talked about that.
I really get that. So
yeah,
I think we'll wrap it up for the day.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for your questions and for joining us on this leafy green path to good health.
It's always the food. So remember,
keep eating right.
Thank you for listening to Science and Saucery. For more details about the content in today's show, or to contact Juliana and Ray, please visit us at healthspansolution.com.
Welcome to